When Resorts World opened in 2021, it was hailed as the $4.3 billion rebirth of the North Strip, a futuristic giant meant to rival Wynn and dominate its end of the boulevard. But by 2025, that promise has crumbled. Empty baccarat pits, falling VIP traffic, quarterly losses accelerating, and regulators uncovering violations that should never happen inside a modern casino. How did a project this expensive unravel so quickly? In this breakdown, we count down the 8 real reasons behind its slow collapse, from a deadly location and weak hold rates to scandals that shattered trust. Follow closely, because the final reason reveals something even Resorts World's own leadership refuses to say out loud. The slow collapse of Resorts World Las Vegas begins with a mistake so fundamental that no amount of luxury could fix it. The resort was built in the wrong place. The far end of the North Strip has always been a dead zone, a stretch with no natural foot traffic. And in 2025, the situation reached a breaking point. Foot traffic in the area fell nearly 40%. One visitor summed it up perfectly. The farther you walk north, the more it feels like Vegas is fading away. The numbers confirm what the eyes already see. The resort sits 2.5 miles from the center of the Strip, and the combination of extreme heat and rising rideshare prices pushed second quarter occupancy down to 80.2%, far below the 89.4% recorded the previous year, and weaker than the Strip's overall average of 86.4%. A housekeeper said anonymously, "Some days I clean an entire hallway without seeing a single guest. It feels abandoned." Without natural crowds, the resort must rely on a far riskier lifeline: high-spending VIP players. But this dependency is fundamentally flawed. 40% of the resort's gaming revenue comes from Asian high rollers and domestic whales, exactly the groups hit hardest by political tension and international travel decline. Due to new trade and border policies, visitors from Canada and Mexico have dropped between 55 and 62%, while passenger volume at Harry Reid International Airport has fallen 6.3%. A VIP staff member revealed quietly, they thought building a resort would pull in the big players, but they never expected the wealthy to see farther than they did, and avoid it from the very beginning. Meanwhile, competition surrounding the resort makes the weakness impossible to ignore. Fontainebleau, right next door, added more than 3,600 rooms and increased revenue by 5% after rapidly strengthening its VIP database. Wynn and Encore continue to dominate the luxury tier with a strong 4.1% hold rate, while Resorts World struggles at 2.5%. Even the resort's average daily rate, rising from $257 to $265, cannot compensate for declining occupancy, which continues to drag total revenue downward. The insight is unmistakable. A $4 billion project cannot survive in a place where tourists do not naturally go. On the North Strip, every step feels too far, every ride too expensive, and every night too quiet. And that quiet is not just atmosphere. It is the sound of a business built on the wrong foundation. This is the first fracture in the structure, and every failure that follows begins right here. The 7th major reason behind the decline of Resorts World Las Vegas is the rapid and alarming deterioration of its financial performance. After celebrating record highs in 2024, the resort entered 2025 on a trajectory that felt less like a slowdown and more like a controlled crash. The first quarter exposed how fragile the foundation really was. Revenue dropped to $166 million, a 22% decline from the $214 million recorded the previous year. Earnings collapsed even more dramatically. EBITDA fell from $40 million to just $10 million, a 75% plunge, driven by weak table hold percentages and the absence of major events like the Super Bowl that had boosted 2024. A financial insider revealed, "Everyone expected a dip. Nobody expected numbers bad enough to trigger internal panic." The second quarter offered only a faint illusion of improvement. Revenue rose slightly to $180 million, but year over year, it still represented an 18% decline. EBITDA was hit again, dropping 64% as macroeconomic uncertainty deepened, and June visitation across Las Vegas fell more than 11%. A marketing employee admitted privately, "We spent more to attract fewer guests. It felt like rolling a boulder uphill." Then came the breaking point. The third quarter delivered $175 million in revenue, nearly flat year over year, but down 3% quarter to quarter. For the first time in its history, the resort posted a $12 million EBITDA loss. Conference attendance dropped 10.7%, and consumer spending had fallen for 11 consecutive months, cutting into gaming, dining, retail, and entertainment all at once. Underneath every one of these declines sits the most destructive force of all: debt. The resort is burdened with more than $2 billion in construction debt at an 8% interest rate, meaning nearly $200 million evaporate annually before profit is even considered. An internal executive admitted off-record, "Every quarter we start in a $200 million hole. Nobody can grow their way out of that." Analysts across Las Vegas project losses of up to $100 million for the full year. And of course, the numbers never lie. Resorts World is not merely facing a weak cycle. It is trapped in a financial structure that makes every downturn worse than the one before. The sixth major reason behind the decline of Resorts World Las Vegas is a legal scandal so severe it shook the confidence of regulators, VIP players, and even its own employees. In March 2025, the Nevada Gaming Control Board issued a $10.5 million penalty, the second largest fine in the state's history, after a 2-year investigation uncovered systemic violations of anti-money laundering rules between 2022 and 2024. Regulators concluded that the resort repeatedly allowed illegal bookmakers and known criminal gamblers to wager millions of dollars with minimal or no source of funds verification. One compliance analyst described the findings bluntly. "This wasn't a mistake. It was 2 years of leaving the door wide open." The most explosive case involved California bookmaker Matthew Bowyer, tied to the Ippei Mizuhara scandal involving stolen funds from baseball star Shohei Ohtani. Bowyer lost $7.9 million over 20 months. According to investigators, the casino's cage director even marked him as a known bookie. Yet the activity continued uninterrupted. Even more damaging was the revelation that Bowyer's wife, Nicole, worked at the resort as a VIP host during the same period. A conflict of interest that should have triggered immediate action. A staff member familiar with the case admitted quietly, "Everyone assumed someone else had checked him. Nobody wanted to be the one to shut down a big spender." Another red flag surfaced with gambler Damien LaForbes, reinforcing the pattern regulators later summarized as a welcome mat for criminals. The fallout was swift and far-reaching. Resorts World was ordered to retrain its entire workforce on anti-money laundering compliance, conduct quarterly audits, undergo enhanced reporting for 5 years, and hire a new compliance director. In May 2025, the resort appointed Jennifer Roberts, well known in Nevada's regulatory circles, to rebuild trust and repair internal systems. But the damage had already spread. VIP players hesitated, regulators tightened oversight, and the resort's reputation absorbed yet another blow at the exact moment it could least withstand one. And of course, The real danger goes far beyond the dollar amount of the penalty, because legal instability can dismantle a casino far faster than any decline in revenue ever could. The fifth major reason: the chaos of leadership turnover. CEO departures, top-level shakeups, and more than 40% executive turnover since 2024. Since that year, the resort has cycled through presidents, financial chiefs, and operations leaders at a pace that alarmed even Nevada regulators. The downfall began earlier, when its first president, Scott Sabella, was fired in September 2023 amid allegations connected to MGM and his dealings with bookmaker Matthew Boyer. What followed was a leadership vacuum that Resorts World never truly recovered from. In January 2025, the company appointed Alex Dixon as Chief Executive Officer, a respected figure in the local casino industry. But just 4 months later, in May 2025, he abruptly exited the role, leaving Chief Financial Officer Carlos Castro to step in as interim CEO. Even at the board level, instability continued. A new board formed in December 2024, including Jim Murren, the former MGM chief, and Brian Sandoval, a former Nevada governor. But according to the Nevada Gaming Control Board, these sweeping changes represented wholesale restructuring, not healthy evolution. Inside the company, the effect was immediate and damaging. Executive turnover surpassed 40%, meaning nearly half of the top decision-makers changed within a span far too short for any coherent strategy to survive. A senior employee described the environment quietly. "Every time we adjust to a new leader, another one walks out. Nobody wants to own the long-term plan." As leadership shifted, so did priorities. VIP promotions were cut by 20%, undermining the resort's already fragile high-roller segment. The loyalty app, a key tool for retaining repeat visitors, faced repeated delays. Departments reported contradictory instructions week to week, leaving staff unsure which strategies were still active. Genting labeled the changes as business recalibration, but internally, employees used different words: no vision, no direction, and we're reacting, not leading. The insight is unavoidable. No casino can succeed when its leaders do not stay long enough to steer it. And for Resorts World, the absence of stable leadership didn't just weaken the business. It left the entire organization drifting as financial and legal crises closed in from every direction. The fourth major reason: staffing cuts and collapsing service quality. 50 layoffs that sent guests running for the exits. In late March 2025, just days before the resort's record anti-money laundering fine, approximately 50 full-time employees were laid off across housekeeping and food and beverage. Genting framed the cuts as efficiency, but industry observers like Vital Vegas argued it reflected deeper business weakness, not ordinary restructuring. The impact was immediate. Check-in lines stretched 30 to 45 minutes. Rooms lacked towels, bottled water, and basic restocking. Tipped employees saw their gratuities drop 15 to 20% as reduced hours and heavier workloads strained service quality. A housekeeper described the shift quietly. "When they let people go, the work didn't disappear. It just landed on the rest of us. We can't keep up, and guests can feel it." Online reviews reflected the same decline. TripAdvisor ratings slid from 4.5 stars to 3.8, with nearly 30% of recent comments calling the service poor or unacceptable. Labor tensions rose as well. The Culinary Union's 2025 contract improved wages and benefits, helping retention on paper, but layoffs combined with federal immigration policy shifts created chaos. Roughly 30% of the resort's largely Hispanic workforce faced new uncertainty, making staffing consistency increasingly difficult. A front desk employee shared off-record. Some weeks we have enough staff. Other weeks half the schedule changes. Guests think it's disorganization, but the truth is we're trying to run a mega resort with skeleton crews. Luxury properties cannot survive on reduced labor and rising pressure. And at Resorts World, cutting staff in the middle of financial and legal crises didn't just weaken service. It pushed guests away precisely when the resort needed them most. The third major reason: civil litigation and a collapse of VIP trust. A slow-moving disaster that cut directly into the lifeblood of Resorts World Las Vegas. High rollers are not just big spenders, they are predictability engines. When they return often, a casino can forecast revenue. When they stop coming, volatility explodes. And in 2025, volatility became the defining story of Resorts World. The turning point came when the R.J. Cipriani case resurfaced. Cipriani, a well-known high roller with deep ties in the Vegas gambling community, alleged that the resort deliberately entertained criminal players and ignored his early warnings about bookmaker Matthew Bowyer. His lawsuit referenced altered compliance minutes, suggesting that internal red flags raised by him were either dismissed or sanitized before reaching upper management. A VIP host said quietly, "In this business, perception is reality. If a high roller thinks he's not safe, he doesn't argue. He leaves." And that perception spread like a brush fire. Resorts World had historically leaned heavily on its Asian gaming database, once generating nearly 40% of its total gaming revenue. But internal figures show a 25% drop in this segment as fears about being monitored traveled through private WeChat groups, line chats, and VIP whisper networks. High-value customers began choosing other casinos where the risk of being caught in a compliance scandal felt lower. That exodus showed up in the numbers instantly. Baccarat, the core game for Asian high rollers, recorded a hold of just 2.5%, the lowest on the Strip, and a painful contrast to Bellagio's 3.8%. A smaller hold means one thing: the biggest players are gone, and the ones who remain aren't betting aggressively. Meanwhile, the resort faced a reputational crisis it couldn't outrun. On X and TripAdvisor, the hashtag #JustResortsWorldFail went viral, circulating images of empty high-limit tables and barren baccarat pits. Repeat visitation dropped 15% among premium players. VIP boycotts, some informal, some coordinated, pushed gaming win down 4.8% in the third quarter. A longtime baccarat patron summarized the sentiment off record. High rollers want discretion and protection. They want to feel invisible. Resorts World made them feel exposed. And once that sentiment sets in, it spreads to every corner of the VIP ecosystem, because high rollers are a herd animal. When one gets spooked, 10 follow. When VIP trust disappears, every recovery plan becomes nothing more than theory, and the revenue that once sustained the resort evaporates faster than any marketing budget can replace it. The second major reason: a beautiful property with empty hallways, 3 hotel towers, advanced technology, and premium amenities that simply could not overcome a fundamental problem. Guests weren't coming in large enough numbers. On paper, the resort is impressive. 3 distinct hotel towers: Hilton for standard travelers, Conrad for upscale guests, and Crockford's with private villas for ultra-high-end players. A massive 117,000 square foot casino. More than 40 food and beverage concepts ranging from Genting Palace to Doghouse. A 5,000-seat theater. AYU Day Club and Zouk Nightclub. Every component designed to feel global, modern, and meticulously engineered. But reality paints a very different picture. Many visitors described the interior as airport terminal energy: spacious, shiny, but strangely empty. A former front desk agent put it bluntly, "It looks like a billion-dollar mall where the stores haven't opened yet." The resort's early technological advantage also evaporated quickly. Systems like cashless betting, facial recognition ID, and tablet-based room controls, originally marketed as groundbreaking, now feel outdated. And after the anti-money laundering scandal, they turned from selling points into privacy red flags. VIP players, especially, disliked the sense of being monitored. Meanwhile, famous food street eats and other F&B venues saw revenue drop 8% as visitors cut discretionary spending and chose simpler, more familiar dining options elsewhere. But the most damaging failure lies in occupancy. The North Strip consistently lags far behind the Central Corridor, averaging only 66 to 70% occupancy compared to 85% in mid-strip resorts. Even when Resorts World posted a seemingly strong 83.6% occupancy in the fourth quarter of 2024, the win was hollow. The average daily rate fell to $286, down $33 year over year. Travelers voiced the same complaint repeatedly. "It's too far and too expensive." A former marketing analyst explained it quietly. "We built luxury for people who don't want to walk this far, and the people willing to walk this far aren't looking for luxury." The contradiction is fatal. A resort can be shiny, advanced, and architecturally impressive. But if it cannot generate natural foot traffic, everything inside becomes a monument to potential that never materialized. And by this point, you're probably wondering the same question we are. Is there anything left that can genuinely turn this around? The truth is that what remains, Formula One weekends, major shows, and aggressive room deals, may look exciting on the surface, but they function more like painkillers than an actual cure. When a recovery effort only touches the surface while the underlying issues are structural, its impact becomes fleeting. In 2024-2025, Resorts World Las Vegas leaned heavily on marquee moments to offset deeper instability. The 5,000-seat theater brought in major performers, helped by Sphere tie-ins that created short-lived bursts of demand. Formula One briefly energized the property. Fan pre-events from November 20th to 22nd, driver meet and greets, and the one-drop charity poker tournament pulled in rare surges of foot traffic. But none of it lasted. As internal forecasts showed momentum weakening, the resort pivoted into what employees quietly called survival mode deals. Resorts World became the only Strip property to waive its $55 resort fee through September 2025. All-inclusive packages dropped to $150 a night, cheaper than Flamingo. Locals received layered promotions and complimentary parking until year-end. Bookings rose 10%, but revenue did not. A revenue analyst summarized it bluntly. "We can fill rooms. We just can't fill them at rates that support a $4 billion resort." Even labor gains were temporary relief. The 2025 Culinary Union contract stabilized morale, but Genting's internal projections remained bleak. Formula One ticket prices dropped 30% in 2025 and still failed to push results into the black. Some executives warn privately that without an extraordinary lift from FIFA 2026, Resorts World could follow the path of the Tropicana, which shuttered in 2024 after years of accumulated losses. One longtime employee put it plainly, "These highs give us hope, but they don't change the story." And that is the essence of this final reason. The bright moments are real, but they are only painkillers. And in the cracks those painkillers reveal, those paying close attention may notice opportunities Las Vegas rarely exposes. Every downfall begins in silence. The crash only comes after the cracks have been ignored for far too long, and Las Vegas is no exception. Resorts World is one of those cracks in the city's foundation, and within it lie fractures of its own that the resort is still struggling to mend. What is happening inside Resorts World reveals something most visitors never notice. Las Vegas does not collapse in a single moment. It unravels quietly, through subtle shifts long before the headlines catch up. High rollers drift away months before revenue charts show the decline. Casual tourists stop walking toward a property long before occupancy falls. And when a resort must depend on discounts or major events just to feel alive, it is often a sign that its center of gravity has already slipped. Vegas only keeps the places that make people feel something: trust, identity, a sense of familiarity. Once a resort loses that emotional anchor, the numbers merely expose the truth that was already there. If this report shifted the way you see Las Vegas, stay close. The city is entering a chapter where small cracks reveal the biggest truths, and sometimes the biggest opportunities. We'll continue tracking these shifts, connecting the dots, and uncovering what most people walk right past. Follow the channel if you want to understand Vegas not as it appears, but as it actually works beneath the surface.